if you don't know dentistry, how can you even build AI? Like, yes, you could be like you're number one in the class that developed technology, but if you don't know how things work, you can't develop a workflow that will work. You run AI for one practice. It's not the same when you run it for 10, 50, 100, right? You have to learn how you could scale. And I've spoken to companies when they tell me it's like, oh, it's gonna cost like $5,000. And then I say like, okay, so if it's gonna cost me more to deal with AI instead of having the staff do it, why would I get AI?
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Dental Truth Project. We're very excited for our guest today, Randa Seif, the COO of CaliDental. But before we jump into her introduction and sharing her truth, we have our Ask Dallin segment today. And the question that was submitted by one of our listeners is, if you stepped into a struggling 3-location group tomorrow, what 3 data reports would you analyze first? Now, it's a hard question. There's a lot that I would want to see. If I knew that it was a struggling 3-group location, probably the first thing that I would look at is the profit and loss statement. And I'd want to make sure that it was accurate and it was detailed and it had all of the data that I needed. But if it did, looking at the profit and loss statement would, I think, give a pretty quick window into why this location was struggling. If revenue is low, you can see a problem there. If doctor pays high, if labor is high, if supplies are high, that window is usually pretty good when trying to analyze like what the specific problem is for the location. And the question is, what 3 data reports would you analyze first? Honestly, the 2 after that would be dependent on what I saw in the profit and loss statement. So if it was a revenue problem, then I'd want to see a production report and a collections report. If it's a labor problem, I'd want to see a payroll report. If it's doctor pay, there's a couple of different PMS reports I'd want to see from that. But number 1 would be the P&L. And that's it for the Ask Dallin segment. Randa, we're now going to turn the time over to you. Please give us a quick introduction of yourself, and then go ahead and jump right into the truth you want to share with our listeners today.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Ken and Dylan. It's exciting times to discuss things. Usually, we always have to all be in person and in the same room. And now technology again opens up discussions and conversation all over the world, which is very exciting. Well, you introduced me. My name is Randa Seif. I am the Chief Operating Officer for CaliDental. CaliDental started almost 7 years ago. I will be celebrating an anniversary of 7 years next year. And we are a DSO, we're private owned. And that's a big advantage to keep patient care in check with keeping our financials in check as well. I mean, I've been in operations for a very, very long time, and technology holds this center of the operation. So I think the truth I would like to share, maybe my perspective about, would be AI. I think this is a topic that everybody wants to talk about and everybody wants to be part of it. And I am in the heart of doing this in 2026. We'll talk about that.
Okay. I am excited for this. So my first question, there are so many vendors in the space right now that claim to be AI. Everyone is slapping AI somewhere on their project, but you are in the thick of operations every day. You are talking to practices that are using software tools. What are you seeing working for CaliDental right now? So what tools are y'all trying to leverage, and what is making the biggest difference for you?
Right. So, you brought in a very good point, vendors. And it's funny because sometimes you would be scrolling through Facebook or Instagram and you get hit. And because I read a lot about AI and technology and dental, obviously, all my social media is linked towards this. They give me a lot of vendors that do AI, and they all want to do the front desk AI and the assist of AI and claim assist and billing assist. And I actually wanted to go through the process of, I don't know who you are, but I want to know who you are if you can actually do something for me. And those are like random company that advertise on Facebook. I did meet with, I think, 2 to 3 companies other than the current companies we're working with that they tell you, oh, you give me $70,000 and I'll make any project happen for you. What do you want? You want to save on front desk? You want to save on doctors? You want to save on this? You want to save on that? And then you start, and people are all over the world. I've actually met people in Australia. I've met people from Amsterdam. I've met people in the States. Sometimes you meet with them. I'm like, I know I'm very curious. I've met a lot of people, but it's like, maybe money is not the issue in the beginning, but there's a lot of things that goes into it. And if you don't know dentistry, how can you even build AI? Like, yes, you could be like you're number one in the class that develop technology, but if you don't know how things work, you can't you can't develop a workflow that will work. Because I've met from people from outside the States, sometimes they tell you, oh, but these things work in Europe. Well, did you test them? Do they work in the States? Sometimes like we're neighbor with Mexico and Canada, and sometimes things like don't even operate on the same level. And there's a lot of things like, and I dropped off obviously the 3 vendors that I was looking into because, it's not easy to decide to give them first access to your patient information, because if you're an AI company, that means you're going to have access to this information and they need to be solid. Like, other than if they're good in their technical skills, like, can I trust you to give you this information? And especially if you want to hire a vendor outside the States, it even complicates the things even more.
Yeah.
So one decision after I met the Facebook, whatever ads, people I call them because there's so many of them. I decided that if I'm going to work with a vendor, it has to be local, not from like California, but local to the States, which they actually understand the challenges, understand like what I cannot do. And obviously I can trust them a lot more, I think, if they are outside. So this was one of the criteria I actually picked. The other thing we picked is if they're willing to understand our business and build things custom, because some of them, they come and tell you, oh, well, this is what I can do for you. You have to you have to fit in this box. Unfortunately, I can't work with someone that doesn't understand what I do and accommodate, because when you run AI for one practice, it's not the same when you run it for 10, 50, 100, right? You have to learn how you could scale. And I've spoken to companies when they tell me it's like, oh, it's going to cost like $5,000. And then I say like, okay, so if it's going to cost me more to deal with AI instead of having the staff do it, why would I get AI?
Yep.
Right? So there's a lot of things that go into it. Some people tell you, well, you get consistency, you get this, you get that. At the end of the day, if it doesn't make financial sense, and this is, I think, what the whole world is not talking about, is AI is extremely expensive and everybody is putting money in this bubble. And we're hoping that this bubble doesn't explode, because I personally don't want it to, but the financial part is like another conversation. Another thing hurdle with AI, and we're actually going through these things, is sometimes providers are scared. They're scared to trust AI. 2 universities I know in California started including AI in their academic process, which makes it simpler for future hires to like, okay, I can actually have AI x-ray. I trust it because I've grew into it, right? Our current doctors, I mean, some have not. So they're kind of scared. Oh, well, if I give this to AI, do I lose control? So, and this is a hurdle. You have to work with doctors. You have to educate them. You have to show them, try it. I mean, the AI is not treating the patient, is not doing the filling, is not doing the extraction. You have the upper hand and they need to feel in control, right? I realize staff are more open to AI because they actually see it as help. At CaliDental, I don't have the issue that staff say, oh, you're doing AI because I'm going to lose my job. They actually welcome AI because I'm trying to take and put AI wherever they have recurrent, boring, repetitive tasks that you actually
Yeah.
don't need to get involved. And I am reassigning the roles to something more fun, something more meaningful, something that they actually can make a difference in the business other than all they have to be looking at a screen and maybe booking an appointment. Yes, the patient unfortunately will lose maybe a personal touch, but I don't know that it matters that if you're giving me insurance information to book your appointment, is it an AI taking it or a live person taking it? But what's important is when you come to the office, someone is actually smiling, someone is actually putting you to ease that we will take care of you. So I think AI facilitate all of this so you can have your staff actually refocus on the things that matter the most to patients. Now, patients actually, if you tell them we have AI, they have no idea what that means. They don't know what AI is. We actually had to educate them, and we've been trying to educate them for over 4 months because and let me know if I'm like covering a lot of realities in AI. I can like bring up in my scope. Patient thinks that AI is a scam sometimes because again,
Yeah.
they don't know what to trust, what not to trust. So you have to tell the patient, listen, like you will be getting a call from our virtual assistant, and actually our virtual assistant has a name. So this is what you expect to speak with our virtual assistant. If you want to escalate the call and you absolutely want to talk to us, not a problem. Just let know AI, like our virtual assistant, and you will be connected with us. So you have to make them understand that technology is okay. Technology is now becoming part of our day. I mean, nobody knew what Facebook is 30 years ago. People didn't even have cell phones. And now, if I don't have a cell phone, I go crazy. I dropped off my son to school today and I didn't have my phone. And I'm like, oh my God, now I have to be like 20 minutes on the road with doing nothing. I can't even like talk to anybody. I can't listen to a podcast. I can't do anything. So I had to turn on the radio because I was bored. Um, but
So,
it,
Randa, I've got a question I wanted to throw at you. It's an initial observation and then a question.
yes,
So, as you were talking, what you were starting to do, I don't know if you realize this, but I think you were starting to create the playbook for how to try to interact with in a positive way with AI. So the first thing that I wrote down that you said is, hey, if you're going to hire somebody to get involved, you want them to know and understand your business deeply. They cannot,
correct.
being at the surface, not going to work, right? Second one was you're saying that having that team onshore as opposed to overseas solves some problems, probably around HIPAA,
Yes.
other types of things like that. And so you want to be super focused on that. And then training the staff and getting the staff on board. And then probably the hardest part, what you were just most recently talking about, was the need to educate patients. If you're going to be using an AI assistant to call or to book appointments or those things, make sure that you're upfront with your patients and you give them the ripcord. If they want to talk with a real person, they know to push this number and they don't have to sit there and, loop around. Is that a fair kind of playbook based on what you've said so far?
Yes. And the provider part is a big part of it.
Mhm.
Tell us
You
about
can
that.
you can
I'd
you
love to
can
hear about
bundle it
that
up
part.
with the staff, but they react very differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like from what you're describing, you're using radiographic AI.
We
So
are.
it's like on X-rays, you're using some sort of voice AI to communicate with patients, and whether that's like they call in or you're calling out, you're using some sort of voice AI agent. Are there any other tools that you're currently leveraging at your practices right now?
AI itself, actually, we're doing insurance verification. We started this a month ago, but it's not there yet. There is still some work we have to do with this. There is some, automatic forms. It's not AI, but it's something automatic. And this we've been doing since we started the
Yeah,
company.
for a long
So
time.
the patients will automatically will fill the forms and they will sync right away. So the front desk or the receptionist, they don't have to get involved. But even AI, we still have a lot of work to do. Hopefully this year, because I cannot go faster than the partners, right? So yes, we have voice and we have insurance verification right now, and we have confirmation and X-rays.
I think that's smart. From my perspective, it seems like those are the tools that are the most developed. I've seen a couple of other AI tools for doing different things within the dental office start to appear, but especially the voice AI, the X-ray overlay, and insurance verification all seem to be pretty established. There's a lot of different players in the field. The technology has been around long enough that it's pretty good. I also think for most of those, you will find some companies that have been in dental for a long time and that are very focused on dental. And you'll find some companies that do a little bit of dental, but are mostly in other verticals. They're doing healthcare or veterinary or sometimes just completely unrelated industries. And I think the comment that you made earlier about wanting to find someone who not only is in dental, but also knows your business very well is really important when
It is.
evaluating any of these vendors in the space.
Agreed.
That's exactly right.
And I think it's
Question. I just
go
have
ahead, Ken.
a follow up, Rhonda. I'm curious about, because the practice management software ultimately is the warehouse of all of this data that's AI is interacting with, right?
Yes.
What are some of the learnings you've had about that? Because we all know that the practice management software is not perfect. It has its set of flaws, just like most other technologies. I'm interested in what are some of the major challenges you've had with the practice management software as opposed to just going into some trying to do some native AI project.
So I I think the only hurdle I had with our current PMS is the vendors trying to access information that is not available on their API. Because sometimes if the PMS team develops their own AI, it's easier because you're already in there, you have access to a lot of other things that the outside world see or can't necessarily access at all. And if you want to request, it takes forever. Vendors, when they partner with the PMFs, it's important that they have as much information as possible through the API, because if you're not funneling enough information and you're not accessing enough tables, I mean, there's not much you could do. And this is another criteria when you pick a vendor. Sometimes some vendors, they're more into developing and understanding how the API works with the PMMs that you're currently using, but you always have the limitation that what is there on the table to pick from, right? Like, I'm pretty sure what Denticon is willing right now to have in their API is very different than, let's say, what Henry Schein Ascend has. And this plays a big role because if, let's say, I'm doing rescheduling, right? And there is some tools on how you can reschedule a patient. If a vendor can't access the whole schedule, it just makes it more complex about, okay, how would the virtual assistant be able to reschedule if I don't have access to a specific way of how can I do scheduling, right? I think this is the biggest hurdle I have, which I am actively working and trying to pass through the message. And they do understand, the current team in Denticon, that they need to do this, but sometimes you just can't work fast enough to make everything happen. But they are very much aware that they need to open up more on their API, which I think they have in there, to have the vendor have more opportunities to do things.
Yeah. And I'll make this comment because I spend a lot of time in the practice management softwares of all of our various clients. And there's a lot of different players in the field right now. Planet DDS, Denticon, who you mentioned, is trying more than most others to open up additional API endpoints and integrations because I think they can see that it's impossible to develop every single feature in-house. And there are always going to be some vendors that do things better and have specialized tools. And so if you're going to create a software product that is good for all of your clients, it has to be open API. You have to have as many endpoints available as possible so that people can integrate, they can read data, they can write data. And obviously it's not the fastest process in the world because you want it to be secure. You want it to be safe. You want to make sure that when vendors are coming in and accessing that data, they're not going to mess anything up within the practice management software. So it definitely takes time to do it right. But I can vouch for what you said. I know the team there is very interested in expanding APIs, having open integration, and are working to make that possible.
I hope in 2026 it will happen. I need it. I can tell you, this is a real need.
Yeah.
Thank
Yep.
you.
We all feel that need in the industry.
Well, Dallin, I think we're getting close to wrapping up the episode. Are there any final questions or some additional comments we should possibly surface before we do?
No further questions for me, except Randa, if you've got any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners before we close up.
One thing I want everybody to know is don't be scared of AI. Give it a chance. Give it a chance. I think it's worth it. It makes our life a lot easier to focus on what's important in our business. It's tough. It's tough to change our habits. It's tough to sometimes give control to other people, but sometimes it's needed. And I really want this to work because, if not the whole industry gets on the train is not going to go with one wagon. So it's important that we all understand how important this is so we can advance the industry in a way that makes sense.
Could not agree more and love it. Any further comments from you, Ken?
I really appreciate what I appreciate the most about this is that Randa is like on the ground doing this and talking about it. And so I loved hearing that it's messy. And you're doing a lot of work to try to figure it out and hopefully, carve more and more opportunities over time as you guys just, keep breaking through all the barriers that are out there because there are so many of them. But I was really encouraged by that message.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. We are very grateful that you came on. If any of our listeners have questions for you or want to keep the conversation going, what's the best way that they could contact you?
I will provide you my email and they can email me directly.
Okay, sounds good. We'll put a link to that in the show notes for anyone that's listening and wants to check that out. But that's all we have for today. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.